Hello, is that going? Okay, welcome back from the cup of tea. I'm impromptu MC as well, so I'm going to start off with an MC little bit, and I'll put a picture up there just to avoid Alan's birds pictures taking over me, so I've just put one of mine up there while it's happening. Okay, just a few things coming up to be talking about. Like next week is the competition critique for print number 3. And Di tells me that James is going to be here and he's going to be using the print stand, so it's going to be a slightly different way of doing it. So well worth, if you've never seen prints assessed and talked about from actually looking at the prints themselves, come and have a look. It's a I think far better way of looking at prints because it's all about the picture. The 7 o'clock session next week, we are doing a opportunity for some of those people who completed the judge training workshop to have a go at talking about, in a judgy way, some showcase images. We haven't got very many, but so that'll get like kind of half the session. What I'm hoping to do in the second half of the session is a little bit of marketing for the, a long way away, but 2 years coming up, Pure Salt trip to Fiordland. And what's happened is, what's his name? The guy from down in Tiana has just run one and just published a video on YouTube of a trip to the Pure Salt. So Mike White told me the other day it's up and really good, so we'll see if we can download it and maybe we'll run through that as a bit of a promo. Wednesday the 17th, the RCC's not available, so don't come along. And on the 24th, we've got the 7 p.m. session with Heidi for new members, and it's a new members evening, and the 8 o'clock is the competition critique for PI number 6. Not far away, Wednesday the 7th of August, the Laurie Thomas New Zealand Landscape Salon presentation, so that'll be the presenting of the awards. The judges are coming down, and an evening in here. We usually get a few other people from out around the locals in particular who've done well in the landscape competition to come and have a look. So we'll put that in your focus and be ready for that. Competition's closing soon. Projected image number 6 needed to go in today. Natural history print, 2 prints on the 24th of July, and the open print's a month away on the 31st of July. Then AVs early August, so if you're looking at the AVs, get ready for that. Interclub competitions that are open at the moment, the Sunny National Digital Salon, that's basically this year's NATEX. I'm not allowed to use the word NATEX, but NATEX because there is no convention this year. Creative Focus is on at the moment, goes through to the 21st of the 7th. PJ from New Brighton is on at the moment, goes through to the 24th of the 7th, and the Nelson Triptych's not quite open, but opens beginning of July and all the way through July. So those are the upcoming competitions. Oops, how do we get that? Alan's revenge. I'm going to deny any knowledge of that aeroplane. Other things that we've got coming up, as we've been talking about already, the Laurie Thomas Winter School. So there's a few slots ready to go for that. And as I said briefly, we're going to put out some advertising for the 2026 Pure Salt. So if there's a few people who've shown some interest in that, we're trying to get people who've shown interest to show interest by paying some deposits so that we get things up and running. So there'll be emails coming out for that in the next couple of days. And that's all the things that I can think of off the top of my head. So get rid of that, get rid of that, open that. Okay. From the beginning. Right, so I'm going to talk about PSNZ Honours. And just as Phil has pinched a whole bunch of Newell's presentations to do his one, I've pinched a whole bunch of Newell's presentations to do this one as well. So Newell has been doing this for some time. I'm just going to bring a slightly different take on it. but I most definitely have had a look at his presentation, and there's a fair bit of copying and pasting went on. So there'll be consistent themes that follow out through this. So the aim is, 1, to inspire you, 2, to make sure you understand how the process works, and 3, to encourage anybody and to just outline all the pitfalls that are potentially there when going for your PSNZ Honours. The first question though is, what is a PSNZ Honour? I remember when I first started coming to CPS, sitting here, there was quite a few more members at that point. I think it was a couple of hundred when I started, and the pictures would come up and things were a little bit more formal. Anytime anybody was awarded something, they would always get their letters read out. And I had not the faintest idea what LPSNZ stood for, or FPSNZ, or any of them. And I thought I had it sorted at one point when there were 3 ladies who had LPSNZ. And I went, that's it! It's Ladies Photographic Society. And then I can't remember who it was. It might have been Phil with his L that stood up and thought, bugger, it isn't that at all. So there probably are a few people in the audience that are a bit like I was then, having no real idea what it is. So let's start with, what is a PSNZ Honour? PSNZ Honour is this stuff here. These words come straight out of the guidelines, which I'm going to talk about in a minute. A PSNZ Honours distinction is an internationally recognised award confirming a level of photographic competence demonstrated through a portfolio presentation of the member's work. There are 3 levels of the distinction: licenseship, associateship, and fellowship. And each level requires the photographer to demonstrate an increasing level of photographic competence and artistry. Working for an honours distinction allows photographers to reach new boundaries as they seek to develop their technical skills, set new standards, and discover new levels of creativity. Now that's all a big, huge mouthful, but that's the idea that we're aiming for. So a recognition thing. So why? Why are we going to put all this effort in? I'm going to quote somebody. We choose to go to the moon. No, to do our honours and to do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because the goal will serve to organise and measure the best of our energies and skill, and because that challenge is one that we are willing to accept. So, if JFK can't inspire you, then I haven't got a hope. But that's the point. The point of it is, it's not supposed to be easy. One of the things that I like to talk about in this little bit, the organise and measure the best of our energies and skills, that means, when it's applied to a photographic purpose, we are getting better at it. We're developing our skills. We're growing as photographers. And that's the key to this. The whole point in starting this process is to facilitate the growth of your own photography. So, let's start, that's the why and the high level why. Let's step through exactly what happens and how it works. The first thing you need to do is to download the guidelines. Just go to the PSNZ website. I'll show you what the page looks like in just a second. And there are some clearly written guidelines. Read them, read them, read them. Watch the videos. The last 3 years, Bruce Goodwood, who's the current chair of the Honours Board, has done an extensive Q&A on each level of the Honours applications. So go and look what Bruce has to say. He says the same thing again and again, but if you watch them all, it'll consolidate the whole thing. There haven't been any submissions this year, but they open early in the new year and they close on the 28th of February, and that's because they're realigning the honours with the way that PSNZ conventions have been run. So it went the other way and it's going back this way, so we've ended up with this year out of kilter. But what that does mean that if you're even a little bit inspired to have a go at it now, you have plenty of time. So, this is the page. That's what it looks like. Just go to the PSNZ page, click Honours, click Guidelines and Submissions, and there it says download the guidelines or apply for your distinction. So that's what you need to do. Remember though that the guidelines provide a framework for which we are able to consistently demonstrate our proficiency. They are not intended to be by numbers 1, 2, 3. It's generic in the way it's put. Don't take everything too literally. The PSNZ objective is to foster the creation of photographic artists. Now that's quoted in a few times. Artistry is the unique expression of your vision. So it's all about you developing your photography. Yeah, so this is the other thing you need to do when you've downloaded the guidelines. Go to the next page and you will see examples of licenseship sets, associate sets and fellow sets. They go back, I'm not sure, 7 or 8 years. Make sure you've spent a considerable time studying those. That's one of the probably the most significant advancements in what's happened with the Honours Board in the last 4 or 5 years, is that the work is available, the successful work is available for everybody to see. In previous iterations, the only way you got to see a successful set was either somebody at the club who'd done it or you went to the convention. So now it's generally available for everybody. So make sure you spend some time studying those sets and look at them and write something down to yourself about each one and ask yourself, why was this successful? You will find that there's no magic formula, and there are some of them that are quite different in the way they have responded to the challenge, and their interpretation is different, but they've both been successful, so bear that in mind. Okay, how does the Honours Board work? What happens when you've basically, one of the most exciting parts of the process is when, if you've done it in prints or it doesn't matter if you do it in a projected, either way there is a stage when you go, that's it, it's got to be in, it's going in the mail now, and you go and drop it off at the courier, or you click send and your work's gone. There's nothing you can do to change anything at that point. It's always been a bit of a mystery what happens after that. I'm going to talk about what happens after that. So, firstly, who's on the Honours Board? Again, click and paste straight off the website. Bruce Girdwood is the chairman. Bruce has got this year and next year to go on his reign as chairman. So there'll be some changes coming in the next little bit. On the board as well, Anne Bastian, Paul Byrne, Helen McLeod, Gail Stent and myself. Steph Forrester down in Invercargill does a wonderful job as the secretary, and Steph will be finishing when Bruce finishes, so that's about to change in the next 18 months or so. So that's the names at the moment. When do they meet? What's the process of a set? Let's go back a step. When do they meet? It's a 4 or 5 day process, and there is a stage that goes through. So it's not a just quickly done over Zoom and a quick chat and job's done. It's a fairly lengthy, considered process, and it'll be next March sometime. The dates haven't been nailed down particularly. So, what is the process of assessing a set? What happens is we're sitting in a room. The members of the Honours Board are sitting at sort of 6 tables, and we each have a little panel thing with a switch for a green and a red, and we can't see what anybody else is voting, and we just kind of sit there waiting for things to come forward. Firstly, the set is displayed. If it's a print set, the people handling the prints will come and put them all up on Steph's husband Ross has made this wondrous big panel thing. It's a sight to behold, really. But it displays the works really, really well. The prints are all set out as per the print set out sheet that the person has supplied, and then away we go. No talking, everybody just sits and looks at it from a distance, wanders up and looks at each picture, and then goes back. If it's a projected set, we have a 65-inch high-definition TV sitting where the print board was, and the images are played through on that. So what happens is they go through each individually one at a time, but just the whole sequence runs through continuously. Then it runs through again, one at a time. The first time usually has titles with it, if there's a title included, and the second time it's just the pictures. So it's one picture, 4 or 5 seconds, the next picture, 4 or 5 seconds, the next picture, as we flow through in the projected image set. And then a summary panel that the applicant provided sits on the screen, and still no talking, a vote is held. And then we basically, it's a clear majority rules kind of situation. So if it's 6-0 straight through, you don't have to talk about it. Bring the next one in. Well done. There is usually a bit of talking, and it's usually, that's really cool. Brief discussion while the next one comes up, but nothing needs to happen. But that doesn't happen very often. More often than not, it's a sort of a split decision, and the rules are that a 3-3 or a 4-3 in either direction triggers a discussion. So the panel sit there, and Bruce leads it effectively, and he basically just asks somebody on either side of the viewpoint to just make some comments. And that conversation can take 2 or 3 minutes if there's a simple thing that somebody's seen and the others haven't. It can take 15 minutes if it's a slightly more complex one. There was a fellowship application last year that took most of the morning. So it takes a while. It takes as long as is necessary, and then at the continuation of the completion of the discussion, there's another vote, and usually that stands. But what happened when that long fellowship, the reason it took so long is it went, I think it was 4-3 one way, and then lots of discussions. There were a couple of people changed their minds, but there were a couple of people changed their minds back the other way, and it was still 4-3. So we ended up going round and round in circles. It takes what it takes is the point. Sometimes sets can be revisited. If somebody can kind of put their hand up and say, yeah, because there's lots of them. There was 110, 120 sets last year. So you're into the associate sets, for example, and your brain's still calibrated at licenseship sort of thing. And every now and again, if somebody will go, hey, that's set number 3 that we didn't pass, can we have another look at that? And usually people will go, yes, that's probably a good idea. Doesn't always change, but sometimes that sort of thing happens. That's what happens. That's why it takes 4 or 5 days to work through 120 images, and at the end of it, we're all pretty tired. So, when you complete the process, what feedback do I get is often asked, and the feedback you get if you pass is nothing. Pat on the back. And again, sometimes people go, oh, I want some feedback. Well, the feedback is you're gong, so you're happily to talk about it to anybody else, but that's just essentially where that stands. The history of feedback used to be nothing for anything. You just the application went in, and you either got a yes letter or a no letter, and then you had to go and work it out yourself, what went wrong and what didn't. That's difficult, but it's gone through now. There was a process where there was a letter from the board that was considered and told you some useful information, but it was reasonably concise. And the last couple of years, there have been video feedbacks. The sense we get at the moment is that the video feedbacks is a bit of a step too far in the information line. There's too much there, and it's too hard to do. There's a huge amount of work required on that. So the video feedbacks are not going to happen anymore. We're not exactly sure what's going to happen, but it will be an instant feedback that comes from a reaction that it's made. The process will happen, the voting will happen, the discussions will happen, and then there'll be a recorded summary made sort of on the spot and available to the person who's, and like I said, this still goes to only people who've missed. They'll get their feedback within a week, within days of knowing their result. And the other bit you can always do, and always have been able to do, is to talk to a board member after the event. They'll be more than happy to discuss, talking about the stuff that you've put up. There's no issue with that at all. The only problem is you need to remember that the opinion of one board member is 1 out of 6. And there are situations where people take hardened positions and don't change, and the voting sort of ends up still being 5-1 or whatever. And you might be talking to the one person who thought yours was brilliant, and it's going to be difficult to get a perspective necessarily from them. So just bear that in mind. They'll probably tell you that, but anyway. Yeah, as I said, next time it's something new. Direct feedback at the time of the assessment, so it'll come, within days of your. It's just going to depend how long it takes to process. They'll probably be recorded and then transcribed, or maybe they'll send you an audio file. Don't know yet. Tash. So you say 6 people. How many of those 6 people say yes or you pass? 4, basically, when it comes down to it. So a 4-3 will still, so a 4-2, sorry, will still usually provoke some sort of a discussion, primarily because, most of the board, even if it's in favour, sometimes you don't necessarily have a vote, but it'll just be, I don't understand from you two, most of us think it's okay, why do you two not think so, really, is a conversation that'll have, and if they've seen something profound or got a different take on it, we could reconsider a 4-2, but I don't remember it happening. 5-1s definitely do. Yeah. So that's, anybody else has got any questions throughout this whole thing, just bring them up there and then as well, please. So thanks, Tash, for doing that. I should have said that at the beginning. Right, portfolio. To earn a PSNZ honour, you must learn to work in a portfolio, to put a portfolio together. And that's probably one of the harder hurdles to step over and to get used to and ready to do that, because primarily we work in single image competitions. Pretty much everything we do is single image related. So participate in every opportunity you get. I'm going to talk about the set challenge in a little bit. So what's a portfolio? This comes out of the guidelines. A portfolio is described as a presentation of photographic work in which the total has a greater value than the sum of the individual parts. That's what you're trying to achieve with a portfolio. And again, out of the guidelines, a successful portfolio should take the viewer on a journey. So if you're doing your L and you present 10 images that are just your favourite 10 images and they don't relate together and they don't add up to be something greater than that, they're just your 10 favourite images, you're unlikely to be successful in the portfolio building part of this. It's not a journey if it's all over the place. It's not a journey if it doesn't smoothly transition from one to the other. Those are all the kind of things you need to be thinking about, and almost think about it. If you've been to any exhibitions, go and look at some exhibitions and you'll see that an exhibition is a range of work that has a similar feel to it or progresses an idea or whatever. That's the sort of thinking that you need to develop in order to be successful in this process. And right back to what I said in the start, we do this because it's hard and because it's different and because it pushes and shoves you into new ways of thinking. So that's part of the process. So, print or projected. There's swings and roundabouts, there's pluses and minuses in each of them. But I think you need to ask yourself, what is your medium? What are you more happy working in? And go with that. If you're a print person, go with that. There's lots more work in a print, but go with it anyway because you are fundamentally a print person. If you really like to see your images projected big or on a 65-inch TV and that's kind of your thing, then projected is where you need to be. There's one factor that's not talked about there. It costs quite a bit more to make an 18-image panel of fellowship prints than it does to punch them out in projected images. But that's just part of the process. It is hard and it is expensive and lots of things. So think about that. The other thing that's significant is that your images, when you're successful, and I'm going to talk about that because I want you to all be successful, will be displayed at the PSNZ convention in Nelson next year. They'll be on there in an exhibition. If you've been to one of these conventions, you will know that you walk around the area where the prints are 3 times a day. So you go and study them and you go around and look at them. The projected images are projected onto a big screen TV in a continuous loop excuse me, of the successful ones. So yes, you can find yours there, but you've got to hit the right timing, and then you're at the whim of the projectionist as they come through. They'll also probably go on the big screen at some point during the convention. Personally, I'm a print person, and I'm biased towards prints, but I much prefer the idea of having my work exhibited as a print than a projected image. Just something to bear in mind. I don't think there's any particular advantage in one way or the other. There are things that come across better as a print, and there are things that come across better as a projected. So we're talking, when I talked about portfolios, but we're talking about balance versus flow when we talk about prints versus digital images. So prints are viewed as one body of work. I said that Ross's big construction thing happens, the prints all go up, we pretty much look at them as they go up, and then we see the entire set of images presented in one time in front of us. So you get to see how the structure of the portfolio has gone together, how it's balanced, where there's and then, various bits about portfolio construction are all there. And so it's viewed as one body of work, so you really need to think of it as a single entity, and you need to think about balance within the set, flow and layout and all those sort of things. So it's really about balance primarily for a print set, whereas digital images are like one image, another image, another image, and another image. So they flow one after the other. So you really need to think about how well one image transitions into the next one, and then that one transitions into the next one. Really simple thing to do is to think about the aspect ratios of the pictures. If you saw a 16 by 9 projected image that then went to a 4 by 5 vertical, then went to a 3 by 2, then went to a square, then went to something else, the whole thing's not going to feel consistent and cohesive and flow. So aspect ratio is the first thing to be thinking about when it comes to presenting your pictures. Then you need to find something that moves throughout the set so that you flow from one place to another place, where you take the journey from this original dynamic picture that starts your set so that the assessors can look at it and feel that you've taken them from this place through this journey to this other place. That's flow. I'll talk about the rest of that in a minute. Now, here's the next bit that's got a bit confusing over the last few years, and this is diversity versus cohesiveness. So there's a statement put out quite a lot that you'll see in the guidelines to say that an A set is not a mini F set, and that's really valid. And at some point in the, probably 10 years ago, there were quite a lot of A sets that pretty much could be described as mini F sets, and then there were people who took that A set and added a few more pictures to it and it became an F set. It's always been in the guidelines, these talks about what I'm going to talk about in a little bit, diversity, but the emphasis, and this came from council level through the board, to emphasise diversity. I'll talk about that in a minute. But the point is, you have to be both. If you imagine the most diverse set of images that you could put up, if you took 10 images, say we're going for an L, and we had an image from 10 people and we put them all in prints along there and organised them in one, they would be the most diverse set ever made. There'd be no cohesiveness about them at all. Or if you took, at the other extreme, something made with the same camera on the same position of the same thing as things moved from, maybe it was birds on the same, a lighting and flying away from the same perch. If there was 10 of those, they would be cohesive, but they're not diverse. Somewhere in the middle, you have to find the balance that works for you. Like it said, diversity versus cohesiveness is a balancing act, and it's your balancing act. And if you go through, I said to go and look back through, in particular the A sets that have been successful, you will definitely find some in there that you say, that's all over the place. That's too diverse for my way of thinking. There's not enough cohesiveness. And you will also probably find some that are quite cohesive, and you'll go, where's the diversity? They're rabbiting on about diversity, and there's no diversity there. The point is, they're both sitting in the spectrum somewhere. I'm going to talk about shortly what we're looking for in that diversity part of it, which will explain it. But somewhere in that continuum is what we're looking for, and you still have to have that portfolio building underneath it. Right, diversity. Okay, you can show diversity by using multiple lenses. Basically, we're looking to see that you have a range of skills. It's not a one-shot, one-trick pony type of thing. So you can show diversity by using multiple lenses and lens settings to show your understanding, for example, wide angle and close-up, use of depth of field, or telephoto compression. If you can show us that you've got that range of skill sets and you use that on the similar subject, you can be diverse and cohesive at the same time, for example. You can show diversity by using different lighting conditions, and you can show us that you can manage and understand that. How you use exposure for different conditions, how you create mood with lighting, how you can reveal character or add drama. Those are all lighting things that are different and that could be treated as diversity. Or you could use different subject matters to show diversity. So you could show that you're proficient in different situations like macro, landscape, portraiture, or documentary. I would recommend that you don't go and think of diversity in terms of I need 2 portraits, 2 landscapes, 2 this, 2 that. That's got no cohesiveness and it's way too far in the diverse. And it's just a kind of robotic thing when we're actually looking for artistry. You need diversity in an L and an A in order to demonstrate the range of photographic skills that are required, and that's part of the job description for an L and an A. Cohesiveness. The ability to create a coherent body of work can be a stumbling block because, as I said before, we are really good at, and we spend most of our effort telling a story in each individual image and having an image-based things and no connection between it. We don't often practice putting together a portfolio. This, the italics bit at the bottom, is a direct quote from the guidelines, and it says a successful portfolio will start strongly and take the viewer on a journey. One image can lead to another via links of shape, colour, texture or subject matter, and consistent quality is essential. No one image should stand out as being below or above the standard of the others. One very strong image can be just as problematic as one very weak one. So, works together is what we're looking for with cohesiveness. So, back to the question of diversity or cohesiveness, you need both. Okay, nature versus open. There are different ways you can apply. You can apply for a nature set in all of the grades. You can also apply for a technical set. That's within the guidelines. I don't remember anybody doing a technical set, but if you happen to be a forensic photographer, you're allowed to submit for that. But nature versus open. First thing about nature is we have to have a nature specialist to put some input in. Most of the time there is somebody who has achieved a nature set fellowship as part of the honours set. So maybe that wasn't clear. Everybody, in order to get on the honours board, you have to have achieved the fellowship at some point. So if there's a photographer who got who's on the honours board who got their set with a nature set, they can be the nature specialist. There isn't at the moment, so we get John Reed comes and spends the day talking about the nature element of the images. We assume with all nature images that you've followed the nature rules. They're in the rules, it's all laid out. This is an honesty-based system all the way through. There's no way we can go and check and quad check and everything, so you've followed the rules. So we're going to treat nature images as if they have been made within the rules of nature photography. But the emphasis here is the nature set must tell a nature story. The point of natural history photography is effectively to educate the audience about whatever it is that you've photographed. Whether you're demonstrating to the audience something about a bird feeding or a geographical feature or whatever it is, you are demonstrating something about nature. So if you are going to present a set of images that are nature images, there has to be something about that environment that you're teaching them. And it can't be something like, these birds are beautiful, white herons are stunning, look at them, sort of thing. You could present an image that was talking about the beauty of the white heron, but that would probably fit in an open set better. If you were going to present some images about the white herons, you would want to tell us something about the colony if you're down at Okarito, or about the godwits when they're landing, something about the birds arriving, about the feeding, about the breeding, or whatever. It has to be a story. It has to tell us something about the nature story you're presenting to be a successful nature set. And that is outlined in the guidelines. Where it says specifically, the storytelling value of the photograph must be weighed more than the pictorial quality while maintaining high technical quality. So you can't put rubbish pictures in, but we're not going to get so... it's more important about what the stories you're telling than maybe some compositional techniques, for example. So that's nature versus open. Right, let's go through each of the categories and just talk about them and just see where we stand. Again, most of this comes straight out of the guidelines. It's well worth listening to Bruce talk about it as well. What we're saying with the licenseship is the photographer can stand there and say, I can photograph a wide range of genres and subjects, by using a range of equipment and camera settings in a variety of situations and conditions to demonstrate my general ability to make photographs. Licenseship is about craft. The level of craft is basically where things kind of sit. I'm going to make the observation it's an advantage to be at a club like CPS, which demands reasonably high quality to get somewhere. If you're getting regular acceptances and the odd honours, you are well and truly at the level you could be considering to do to go for your licenseship. So pretty much most of the people I'm looking at could do an L. It costs you $100 is the other thing. The entry fees are $100. The overall costings of the Honours Board is we lose money significantly, so it's coming out of general funds at the moment. So, but the more people that the cost is being held as low as possible. Wouldn't be surprised if it goes up. An associate will say, I can use my camera to apply advanced techniques across a wide range of situations and conditions to demonstrate advanced photographic skills. I'm starting to become an artisan with advanced but general photographic skills. I'm still exploring who I am as a photographer. An associateship is about advanced craft. What's advanced? What's not advanced? I don't know. It's impossible to write a thing to say that's advanced or that's not. But I think you know that you've developed over time and there are areas that you're pushing into that are more advanced. That's what we need to see at the associate level. The last two sentences here also are suggesting for me anyway a developing style. You're beginning to have a style that people will recognise. You're beginning to speak in your own voice photographically. That's where we're going with an associate. And that's really hard to nail down. It's really hard to tell you, right, this is how you do that. My number's 1, 2, 3. It's impossible to do. You're communicating something in your own way, and that way is showing through the whole set. So if I looked at two images within the set, they would both feel like they're part of the same set. That's what we're looking for more at the A stage than we were in the L stage. That sort of airy-fairy, arty-farty stuff is important. And it costs $110. Fellowship. A fellow can say, I have mastered the craft of photography and I can express myself uniquely. I am an artisan, an artist, and I have a recognisable style which I use to communicate through photography. I'll talk about this, how that is presented in a little bit, but that's the crux of it. It's demanding. There's no scope in a fellowship set for a weak image, basically, and it has to sit together strongly. Fellowship is about mastery, and it's $120. Okay, I think I've kind of... Does anybody have any questions before I launch in? Di.
Suggest that maybe you explain that the licensure, I think, is it 10 images? And
Yep.
then 12 for A and then 16 for B.
I thought I'd said that, but I missed that.
You mentioned 18.
Okay, fair enough.
I think that might put the licensure.
Okay, let's do that then right now, absolutely. 10 images, thank you for saying that, because I intended to say that. It was certainly in Yule's notes, so it didn't make it to mine. So 10 images for an associate, 12 images for a fellowship, 18 images for an associate, 18 images for a fellowship. one of the things that's interesting about a fellowship is because it's 18, that's quite a lot of images. And because you are talking about with a fellowship a sort of a thesis-like approach to something, it's really hard not to get 18 images that are starting to say the same thing. It all gets a bit ho-hum and boring. That's the challenge with the fellowship. 18 images is a difficult number to produce. Thank you for the question, Di. Anybody going to get more? Yep. Hannah. I did have that in the notes somewhere, and I pinched it from Newell's again. So yes, let's go right back to the start. Licenseship, you're eligible whether or not you're a member of the Photographic Society of New Zealand as an individual, because you are a member of an affiliated club. So you don't have to be a member of PSNZ. At the A level, you have to be a member of PSNZ. So that's an individual membership for that. And in order to get the fellowship, you have to have an associate, so you've obviously got to be. That's something else I had mentioned there, and it was in my notes, so I must have skipped past it, was the possibility of going straight for an associate. You're allowed to, you don't have to apply for an L. You can go straight for an A if you want to. I'm going to talk about that in a minute because that's exactly what I did, unsuccessfully, but we'll talk about that in a second. But I would say we looked at some statistics over the last couple of years at the last meeting, and it was something like 90%, it was the high 80s or 90% of the people who got their A's had previously had an L. It can be done, but you really got to put some work in to figure out exactly what it's about. So I'm generally going to recommend that people apply for an L first. Are there any more things that I've forgotten to say that are in my notes that should be in my notes? Newell, if I've missed anything you can think of. You can, yeah. Possibly I've got that in my notes. So I'm going to talk about my journey. I'm going to show you some pictures that I found when I dug through my hard drive of what I did. Yeah. That's changed. That was the case. Yeah, no, that's changed. There's recognition of the fact that you've earned it, and there's probably the reality is it doesn't make a heck of a lot of difference. You know, it's nice to have these honours and all those sort of things, and they're recognised in other places rather than just the photographic world. But once you've got them, you've got them, and you've got them. It's the progression and it's the path that it's all about. It's not really about who's got an L and who's got an A and who's blah blah blah. That's just an ancillary thing. So, but yes, you do get to keep them. Is what they are now. So this was my journey through this. I didn't apply for an L. I failed my first A. I achieved an A. I failed an F. And I achieved an F at the end. So there's a number of failed bits in there. So I've actually been on the receiving end of the letters and the bits and pieces, and it would be fair to say that that failed F application, I had a monumental hissy fit, and I was seriously grumpy and angry for ages. So I'll talk about that when we get through it. But anyway, so I probably I'd figured out what L and A was, and I'd seen some pictures and I went, I'm cool enough, I can do that. I'd achieved a couple of honours, so I thought I was the bee's knees at CPS, and so I'd gone to A grade, so I figured I could do the A. That's what A stood for, was the way I figured it. But it didn't work, because what I did was I went to my Lightroom catalogue and I just organised a bunch of pictures that I thought sat well together, and here they are, and it's horrible. It sort of fits together, but there's pictures in there that are just not up to speed. And you know, they were print things. I printed them quite nicely, so that was cool. There was a slightly different aspect about what they were done, but when I looked at it in perspective, it's not up to speed. On the bottom row, basically the one in the middle I think was actually quite good, and I'm still pleased with that picture. And that's the only one that's any good. The rest of them just didn't hold up. The top 3 are okay. I quite like the way I've put that together in retrospect with the 3, 4, 5 kind of thing and the end plate trees. But it was just like I just started, well, what pictures have I got that sit together? I've got a few trees, let's just throw them together in an eye-pleasing manner. And I got told pretty clearly that that's not what you do for an hour. It's actually got to have been developed and thought about a little bit more. And I found personally that I think I achieved more, I learned more failing an A than I would have done achieving an L. When I got the feedback from this and I talked to a couple of people on the honours board, it was like, yeah, okay, that was fair. It was an appropriate place to kick me out, and I learned something. And I learned that you need to make a set of images all the way through. You need to conceive a project, you need to put together a project, you need to develop a body of work, and that, I won't say it's the only way you can do it, but that's the best way of making an associate set, is putting them together. So I went from looking through my Lightroom catalogue to going, well, what am I doing? How can I relate to that? And I had another kind of project going on. I was flying internationally at that time as a first officer on the 777, going to Hong Kong and Singapore and Asia quite a lot. So my A set became a study of the streets of Asia, I called it. And here's my set. And this is still work in here that I don't know how long it is since I did this, but I'm still really proud of it and still chuffed about it, and still it's an important part of what I did. It's a bit hard to see with just from a one perspective in there, but there are different types of work, different types of themes within the body of work. There were things that happen in Asia, and you see lots of bicycles. So I would always see bicycles when out. You will find, I think there are 4 shots of bicycles in there. So they were the one things I looked at. There is some architecture that I looked at, and I started going and looking at buildings and taking photographs of buildings, and then I realised that they didn't fit with my set because they were about buildings and primarily I wanted people. So I made a series of images of looking through things, so through the architecture. This one, and this one, and this one, and where's the other one? That one there. I'm looking through something to see something else as well. The other one was people being people, so just normal things that are happening. The lady eating in the cafe, the couple feeding each other in the market, whatever. There were people being people. And the last one was, you don't see that on Colombo Street. And so I was looking for things that were a bit unusual, and that's the one on the bottom right, or basically the 2 bottom right corners were something, when you look at the picture, you can see that they're uniquely different. So you can see, what I wanted to get by rabbiting on about that was to see that there's a breadth in subject matter and a cohesiveness that comes together at the same time I'm showing you a range of subjects. Cool. Right, that's my successful A, was pretty chuffed with that. This is my angry fellowship set, another tree. I had a period of time where I've pretty much focused on lone trees, and I had a series of work which is about lone trees. I saw a couple of fellowship sets, and this is where I got this idea about 18 images that all get a bit boring and you go to sleep through them. So I made them as a set of prints quite differently. I toned them. They were black and white prints. They were either toned in a earthy green or brown, and I arranged them in this kind of checkerboard fashion so that you couldn't go to sleep because you kept changing colour is what you did there. The feedback I got from the honours board that made me grumpy was when they said, yeah, you should have rearranged it in this way. You should have put all the light ones in the middle and the dark ones around the outside. And I went, they can't tell me how, and just threw it off in a hissy fit. Interestingly, a couple of years later, I had the same images sitting in a Lightroom catalogue, and I quietly rearranged them the way they suggested and went, bugger. So the point, I still stand by my point that it needs to be my vision, and the fact they didn't understand my vision was my problem, not the fact that my vision was wrong. But I didn't get it across, and I didn't explain what I tried to achieve, and it didn't come across well. So that was the problem rather than anything else. But anyway, that was the failed F. This was the successful F when I went the other way, just did something else which was completely different. And I've been doing, and I still am, doing some work for the Writing for Disabled. And I had done a project of work with this little girl, Tessa. And basically this came together as a series of images about Tessa and her writing on Writing for Disabled. You will see though that it starts, until you can't see with a big picture, but the point is she starts off pensive, nervous, apprehensive and tentative in everything she does at the start, and as you flow through the set she becomes more and more at ease to where she's exuberant at the bottom end of it. So that's the development that happened through there. You will also see that the positioning within the frames vertically is all kind of the same. If you look at the end panels, they're all relating in the portrait ones. If you take the next row, she goes from small but on that sort of third, that side, to big to bigger. And the same thing happens in each of the middle ones. They all relate to each other, but she gets bigger in size. So there's lots of bits and pieces that went in the arrangements of that. So at the fellowship level, it has to be quite complex in the way you put these things together. What I'm going to do now is kind of step through my thinking of how this fellowship set came apart. I found these again, just found them. I thought I'll put them in this talk. So I started off by going, well, if they didn't like my trees, well, if actually Ferg Campbell, some of you met Ferg, he called me up and said, why don't you do some pictures of those cute kids? They won't dare fail a set of cute kid pictures. There's no way they'll fail them. And actually, there's a bit of logic to that. So I went to the cute kid pictures and got them all out and stuck them in an arrangement. And I started off with Tessa at the top, and then I had some activities at the bottom, and then I had some sort of close-up portraits of super cute kids, and there's heaps of them in the RDA. So I had this whole line of sort of cute kids. So it went Tessa, doing things, and then cute smiley kids at the bottom. But it kind of feels like three separate things. So what did I do after that? I went, okay, let's make the doing things a bit more active. I'm really happy with the Tessa line, and I'm really happy with the projected image line, but the one at the middle was just a bit sort of distant. So I used the couple on the outside, but made more activities, but focused activities with people in the middle. So that went to there, and then I rearranged it again by going, well, basically I decided that the middle line wasn't working. I liked the bottom line and I liked the top line, but I just couldn't get the middle line to work. So I went, okay, let's get Tessa at the top and the bottom and a whole bunch of cute kids in the middle, because the cute kids I couldn't let go. About this point, I kind of realised it's got to be more concise. You've got to let go the cute kids that I really liked and continue with just Tessa. So then it became a just Tessa thing. And you'll also notice in there, this is an early sort of adaptation as I'm starting to put things together, that she has a really bright red jacket that actually jumps out at you. So I decided that I needed to desaturate it, and I desaturated a couple in the top middle there, and I was just starting to think about how the developing would kind of work to make this set cohesive without that red overpowering everything. So that was the first thought with that one. This is a progression, and it's nearly there, but see how at the top row she goes from pensive at the start, and the end of the top row she's got a big smile on her face. That's when I realised that progression has to happen, and that smile needs to be down the bottom. So there's the smile down the bottom, and that's kind of the final set. So it's a developing, progression-y kind of thing. I'm gonna leave it there. But what I'm going to do is, and I think it's 3 weeks from now, we're going to have the kick-off of the set challenge for this year. And I'm really keen to get a whole bunch of people putting their name forward for PSNZ Honours next year. So I'm going to make the set challenge strongly about an honours type set. I'll talk about it on the night. I think it's 3 weeks away. And you're going to have a reasonable period of time because I'm naffing off overseas for a couple of months. So I'm going to set it up in July. You're going to have August, September, and then October we'll be able to have a look at it. So if we can get people talking together and comparing notes and thinking about how they're going to build a set of potential honours images in the set challenge, it's a really good opportunity to have a go at it. Yeah, and I might get a couple of others. I might get there's a couple of other Christchurch judges or honours board people. If we can all talk about it, we can look at your pictures without looking at your pictures, so to speak. Does it? Yeah.
I was just going to suggest if anybody wants to go and look at live judging, to watch at the Iris Awards later this year. Anyone can go just to the back, just have a watch of live judging. It's quite interesting to get a feel of what goes on.
It is really good to see the live judging, but it's quite different to an honours thing. So yeah.
It's not series, it's one image at a time, but
Yeah.
you get the idea of how the judges do it.
The banter bit's not dissimilar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just something else.
Anybody got any other questions? Are you all inspired? And we're going to have 25 entrants from CPS at. Okay, that's pretty much it. Now I'm swapping back to MC mode, and I've got nothing else to say. So let's turn the lights back on. And more questions. Go.
No, I just wanted to thank Janine very much for the Helen McLeod workshop for the weekend. It was really amazing.
Cool. Who's she? How many went? How many went?
9, 10.
Or-
Everybody enjoyed it, yeah? Yeah, it was great.
Cool. Okay. Right. See you next week. Yeah. Before you go, MDC.
See what you think.
How do we turn it on?
Where do I turn it on and off?
Something went on the front there. Is that it? Let's wait.
Congratulations. And just before you go, can you pick these magic numbers for next month? A number between 1 and 7.
1 till 7.
Yeah. Number 5. And a number between 1 and 30.
1 till 30.
Yeah.
28.
28 is shadows. So shadows is the one for next month, and the current one is road, track, path, which closes on Sunday night. Thank you very much. See you next month.